We started that a long time, a couple years ago, by having these scouts do it, and then it went into COVID, so no one did it forever.
See yourself in the end. Yep, we're good.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of Bellbrook City Council. Today's date is Monday, November the 8th, 2021. For the Pledge of Allegiance tonight, we're going to do something a little bit different. I've got Kelly Kempton, my nephew's wife, and her two children, Kenley and Colby, with her, and they would like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So with that, everybody please stand. Okay, Colby, when you're ready, say. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. When I first became mayor back in 2019, we started a process whereby if anybody was going to come to address council, we would give them the option to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Then we went into COVID for 18 months, and now we're back at it. So thank you. Anybody else who wants to do it, we invite them as well. Rob, could you call the roll?
Mr. Hoke.
Here.
Mr. Havens. Here. Dr. Van Vadhuizen. Mr. Greenwood.
Here.
Mrs. Middlestetter.
Here.
Mayor Schweller.
Here. Could I have a motion to excuse Dr. Dave?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Mr. Hoke.
Yes.
Mr. Havens. Mr. Greenwood.
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter.
Yes.
Mayor Schweller.
Yes. Before you, you should have the minutes of the last regular meeting, October the 25th. And we also have minutes of our last special meeting, November the 3rd. Does anyone have any changes, additions, or corrections to those minutes?
No, Mayor.
Seeing none, they're approved as submitted. Mayor's announcements and special guests have already introduced the Kemptons, but I would also like to welcome our newest council members. Forrest Greenwood is returning for another 4-year term. Catherine Cipher is newly elected, welcome, and also Brady Harding, newly elected, welcome. Tonight we have no public hearings, but we do have an introduction of Ordinance 2021-9. And it's assigned to Dr. Dave, who is not here. Would someone else volunteer to read that for us? Thank you, Elaine.
Ordinance 2021-9, authorizing transfers between various funds of the City of Bellbrook and amending Ordinance 2021-8 by making supplemental appropriations for expenses of the City of Bellbrook for the period beginning January 1, 2021 and ending December 31, 2021, and declaring an emergency. Whereas the City of Bellbrook adopted the 2021 annual budget based on the best information available at the time. And whereas additional costs and/or adjustments will occur in various 21 personnel services and other expenses, which requires the amendment of various appropriation levels. Now therefore, the City of Bellbrook hereby ordains Section 1 that the 2021 appropriation levels in several of the funds listed below be amended as follows. I'm not going to go through the whole long list. I'll just do the grand total of all funds. The amended appropriations total is $8,002,167. Section 2. This ordinance is declared to be an emergency measure necessary to meet a public emergency affecting health, safety, morals, or the public welfare, or a special emergency in the operation of a municipal department, and for the further reason that unanticipated payroll expenses must be covered, waste collection costs must be paid, and timely appropriation and expense of coronavirus Relief Act funds as outlined in House Bill 614 to be expended by December 31, 2021. Therefore, this ordinance shall take full force and effect immediately upon its adoption by council. Section 2, it is hereby found and determined that all formal actions of this council concerning and relating to the adoption of this ordinance were adopted in an open meeting of this council, and that any and all deliberations of this council that resulted in such formal action were in meetings open to the public in compliance with all legal requirements, including but not limited to Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. It's all yours, Rob.
Thank you.
And I like all that language, we're only talking $2,900, so,
Yeah, exactly.
a lot of discussion.
Yeah, a lot of discussion. But however, it is important. We've got opportunities to take some advantages of some funds within the 2021 budget. So the transfers have a net zero effect on the budget itself. Of course, we're moving money from one portion of the budget to another, not actually adding any additional funds to it. The only actual addition of funds is the $2,952 of remaining coronavirus or CARES Act money. And again, that doesn't affect the general fund or general revenues of the city. That are funds that are still sitting in the balance that have not been appropriated that we can appropriate. So the overall net impact to the budget regarding revenue expenses to date is nets at zero. So in the general fund, there's obviously with the staffing shortage, there's been some extra hours conducted through the administration, and so we want to move funds that were allocated to community environment, which would have paid for a person had that position been filled, and move those funds into the administrative division of the general fund, and that's a $9,500 decrease from community environment, $9,500 increase to administrative personnel services. Again, net zero change to the general fund. In the police fund, the personnel services component has some excess funds. We moved around and reallocated some stuff in the personnel portion of the police fund. We have a couple of payouts due based on some language in a collective bargaining agreement. We've sat down with the union, and we've negotiated some language that will describe a policy to help offset that and manage that over the balance of this year and going into subsequent years. We certainly appreciate the police personnel and the union working with us on that. In addition, we have an opportunity to take some of those excess funds that aren't going to be used in police salaries this year, move them from personnel expenses into other expenses, and that will allow us to begin the process of that new RMS system that the police chief talked about and the fire chief talked about in their budget presentation. So rather than putting that into next year's budget, and we can go ahead and get some costs and stuff locked in for this year, get ourselves in line. I think that's a good idea, considering if we do involve any equipment, maybe we can get in line of any supply chain issues with that. So again, that would be a decrease from police fund personnel, increase into police fund personnel for the same amount for a net zero change. Fire fund, we're looking at basically the same situation. We recall that the assistant chief was not filled, and we're going to reallocate some of that. We are considering the power cot, which would have been an expense for 2022, as well as the equipment and upgrade to their new reporting system and the new mobile dispatching with the pre-planned responses that we discussed last time, being able to take care of that out of already allocated and budgeted or already appropriated funds from 2021, just reallocating them from personnel into other expenses. Again, net zero change. The coronavirus relief fund, upon balancing and reconciling up through 2021, we found, if you recall, we did a supplemental, we added $1,888, but we actually found there's an additional $2,952 of unspent CARES Act money, and it's suggested by CARES Act and the powers to be that the funds are spent rather than returned. I think it's easier for them to just have us spend it, but nonetheless, there certainly are some additional things that we can utilize those funds on to help sustain our safety and precautions and purposes of that money into coming years. The waste fund, with increase in fuel prices, there's additional fuel surcharges that have been placed on our monthly waste collection bill. So we do have a slight overage in personnel services. We can rebalance that and some reallocation from water fund money because that person does utility billing and waste billing. So we're able to do that, taking that money, decreasing that from the personnel service to waste fund, and that should cover it. In fact, I know it will because we just got the actual, we did an estimate. We estimated high, but we got the return today. It's just under $1,800. So we're good within that $2,100 increase. So the reason it's written as an emergency is we need to be able to utilize the expenditure of those funds and get those projects underway. And of course, with the process of a public hearing and reading at the next meeting, that will allow us a good 30 days to be able to use those funds rather than waiting for the orders to be enacted. So we certainly appreciate consideration when it gets to that time. And that's all I have for that.
This is planned to be our last supplemental of the year, hopefully, or
Yes,
possibly
with the,
one at the very end or one.
yeah, with the exception of, I'm not sure what the practice has been before, but it's likely that we will wrap up towards the end of December for the last meeting and do one final supplemental for any reductions. That way, we can really show our carryovers and just kind of back those out of the books and the budget, and just makes the accounting and auditing a little bit easier and clearer for next year. So
And you're correct, that has been our practice. We always use that one of our last meeting in
Right.
December, which is just kind of a general housekeeping thing and
Right.
get something left down for the audit starts. Good.
Right.
Okay, any questions or discussion regarding ordinance 2021-9? Seeing none, can we have a motion for ordinance 2021-9?
I move that we approve ordinance, excuse me, ordinance 2021-9.
Thank you, Elaine. Can we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ernie.
TJ.
TJ?
Mr. Hoke,
Yes.
Mr. Havens,
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter,
Yes.
and Mayor Schweller.
Yes. We have no resolutions, we have no old business, we have no new business. But we do have a city manager report.
Yes, thank you. Just a couple brief updates. First and foremost, and I'm sure others will recognize, and I certainly don't want to take away from any of that, but this Thursday, of course, is Veterans Day, and I want to certainly pay homage to those that have served and given all, and those that continue to serve, as well as all the families, especially in communities like ours, many families that have servicemen and women, past and present, myself included, and we certainly wish and pray for everybody's safety and give thanks for everything that all our veterans do to provide the very freedoms that we enjoy day to day, the ability to live, the ability to live freely, and their sacrifice and their efforts certainly sometimes go unrecognized but never go unnoticed in everything that we do day to day. So make sure to celebrate and thank a vet and thank our current and active duty servicemen and women. The next thing would,
May I interrupt you? And this came about at the last minute, but there is going to be a recognition ceremony at Art Town on Thursday
oh, excellent,
at 5:30.
excellent.
So the Chamber of Commerce is
Oh, great,
putting it in.
great.
There'll be an honor guard and music and.
Great.
Yeah.
And if we're giving plugs, also, one of the projects that I left in Huber Heights was a Veterans Memorial, very near and dear, and worked with a great group of fine veterans, and we formed a Veterans Commission, and we took a small-scale idea of having a very nice, respectable memorial, and we turned it into a regional amenity, a little more than $1.5 million, beautiful memorial. And if anybody gets an opportunity, every community's got great memorials, but if you want an educational piece, we've got a Walk of the Wars where you walk through a walkway, and it has depicted not only the wars and conflicts that we have engaged in through time and history, but their distance out appropriate to the amount of time and distance between those wars and conflicts. So the further you walk, the further the distance in time, the closer you walk between them, the closer in distance, to give an idea. It's really a beautiful piece and really designed to pay homage to all our veterans in the area and the region. So if you get a chance to give that a visit,
That's in Huber.
please do. Yes, ma'am. Yes, at Thomas Cloud Park.
Oh,
Okay.
Thomas Cloud Park. Issue 5, with the passage of Issue 5, the budget will remain as originally estimated, and we certainly are very grateful to the residents of Bellbrook who entrusted us again to utilize their tax dollars to serve their needs and to identify and expend those funds on the priorities that they identify. As we incorporate the revenue generated with that, it's estimated to be about $225,000. We'll again continue to remain focused on those priorities that we have heard, those being public safety, interior street maintenance and paving, and our stormwater management. So as you can see in just some of the capital discussions, we certainly have plans, and we will certainly make good use as what the community asks us to do. Downtown streetscape, I messed it up again. As revealed the last meeting, the input was submitted. We shared that with everybody. We're going to schedule a work session on the December 13th, right before the December 13th regular council meeting, if that's okay with council, to have Kleinter's come in and discuss what our next steps are. They'll have some updates on some potential leads for funding opportunities, as well as addressing the identified categories to knock down and identify projects within the streetscape study. In addition, we had a brief discussion about the bump outs. That's kind of a common discussion, and their thought and process behind it is it again hasn't been engineered. So let's take that input in the actual engineering of any of those bump outs to make sure that we can still potentially utilize them to serve the needs of safer mid-street pedestrian crosswalks, assistance in parking, but also make sure not to impede any traffic flow or larger vehicles. So and I think that's a great recommendation because, again, their thoughts was basically conceptual and this is what we could do, but it hadn't been engineered. So let's take those comments and consider it in the engineering so that we can still maintain that as an element of the plan and make sure what would be engineered would actually work or not, and then identify the concerns there. And then finally, the 2022 budget, we continue to balance and reconcile the remainder of 2021, and although we're pretty much where we are with our recommendations, by the time that the budget ordinance is prepared for the meeting on the 22nd in its first reading, there will no doubt be final adjustments up to that last couple of days because we want to present as accurate of a document as we possibly can and have it trimmed down based on the best actuals and the best estimates of costs that we can get. So we'll continue to do that for the next couple of weeks and look forward to seeing the budget ordinance read at the next meeting.
Very good. So, any questions of the city manager?
No, Mr. Mayor?
A lot of stuff going on. Good report. Brings us to committee reports, starting with service.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had one observation I saw in the Dayton Daily News. They had an article about some of the cities and places have shortage of snowplow drivers, trucks, materials. I just want people to know that we are fully staffed. Our equipment is ready to go, and we have salt. And I think Rob might have some gas money, so I think we're ready to go. So that's all. I just wanted to bring that up because it's kind of startling when you read the article, along with everything else that's going on with shortages and personnel shortages and everything. So, but we're in good shape.
We have plenty of salt.
Plenty of salt.
We've got salt. We've got people willing. We also even Melissa Jones even has a CDL, so we can throw her in a truck if we need to.
Exactly.
Thanks, Forrest.
That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. Safety.
Not really much this week or this meeting. I do just want to bring attention outside of Bellbrook. I want to thank Sugar Creek Township Fire, and I believe also police were there October 30th. Some of the local youth football teams played in the championship game, and we had to travel to Tip City. Police and fire gave us an escort out of town. We left from Bellbrook High School, traveled on Sugar Creek Township Road, so that's why it was the township departments. But full service, lights and sirens blaring, traffic stopped, pulled over. Everybody was honking the horns. As an adult, it was fun. I cannot imagine how fun that was for the 8, 9, and 10-year-old kids that got to see their community support them in a moment like that. So hats off to them. It was definitely well appreciated. So thanks. Cool.
Very good, thanks.
That's cool.
Finance and audit. Nothing really to report tonight. The budget process is moving along, and I think we're in good shape, and I look forward to the budget presentation in December. Community affairs.
The only thing I have is that we are still in the interviewing process for our clerk.
Okay. Thank you, Elaine. Next up is a clerk update, and I think the next things that are important is the budget introduction will be November the 22nd, and the hearing on the budget will be, the public hearing will be December 13th. This brings us now to open discussion of council. Alphabetically, Mr. Greenwood.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to appreciate or give my thanks to the people that came out and voted, doing their civic duties. A lot of people voted, and I look forward to working with new people in January, and I'm looking forward to a good year next year. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Havens.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just touch on something that Rob mentioned earlier. This week is Veterans Day coming up. You wouldn't believe the amount of suicides that occur in the veteran population. So I just ask you to really take that seriously and reach out to a veteran that you know, that maybe you haven't talked to, make a phone call, tell them how much you appreciate them. It can mean the difference between life and death. So that's all I've got.
Thank you, Ernie. Mr. Hoke.
I also wanted to add to the Veterans Day reminder, just as for the history nerds out there like myself. Veterans Day recognizes Armistice Day, which celebrates the end of World War I. It was formally noted at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918 when the armistice with Germany went into effect. And it was renamed Veterans Day in 1954. And to Ernie's comment, some wounds are not visible. They can be internalized. Please be on the lookout. Certainly, when current events can maybe set off certain memories, just be on the lookout for the friends in need. I also wanted to thank all the residents of Bellbrook that came out on the election day. By looking at the numbers, turnout was pretty significant. So kudos to the City of Bellbrook. And I believe that is all that I have. Yeah.
Thank you, TJ. Mrs. Middlestetter.
Just add my thanks to the voters. It's always important to make your voice heard, and we appreciate you coming out and supporting us. That's all I have.
I'm going to reach out again and thank our veterans in the Bellbrook, Sugar Creek community, and also thank the voters for supporting Issue 5. It's our only non-continuous levy out there, but it won by, I think, 70% in favor of it. I was very pleased. I think it's money that we definitely need, and we will spend it the right way. We'll spend it like it's our own. With that, the meeting is now open for public comments. Anybody in the viewing audience care to speak? Kelly, you want to quick give your name? You can just say your name on the microphone. She's a third grader, and they are studying local government. I spoke to third graders in September. I spoke to our class. And then the classes came down here to City Hall, this past week, Rob, on Wednesday or Tuesday? Yep. I'm not sure she's going to be able to stand up. Is the microphone on here?
You can push it down.
Push it tilted down.
Can they see your picture? You can go at the front if you want.
There you go.
Just give your name, tell them what you're studying. local government. And you're a third grade cheerleader for We Eagles. Here's a pin for the City of Bellbrook. Colby Duelman. And Colby plays kindergarten flag football for the We Eagles. Here's one for Mom.
Oh, thank you.
We had the third graders in this week, we had, Public Works had a backhoe out front and fire truck, medic, then they got to tour the police department and a police car, and they all came in here, and most of the classes got their pictures up in the big seats, and then they got to learn about what all of our council members, and we compared them all to, you remember we compared them all to our government compared to some state government, compared to the federal government, and how this government here is the only government that they can actually come and interact with and reach out and touch and speak their mind, and then they can actually see what ideas they have come to fruition and affect and benefit the community. And I got to be honest, I've had the pleasure in my life to speak to a lot of groups of kids of that age and school groups, but what an inquisitive and engaged group of kids. I mean, each class, there were amazing questions. I mean, we had questions, you know, I even had a kid say, well, what do you think about the Emancipation Proclamation? You know, we're getting some deep questions about things, and people were asking very intelligent questions, you know, well, do they pass laws, and what kind, you know, just all sorts of very, so the teachers are doing a great job of getting them prepped to understanding the foundation of the local government. And they really came charged up with some great ideas and questions and comments. It was, it gives me hope.
Very good, very good. When I talked to him, I gave him a little bit of rundown about the city, and then it was always questions and answers, and the questions were all over the map. But it was interesting, it was a lot of fun too. Is there anyone else in the viewing audience care to address council this evening? Okay. Seeing none, that brings us into our meeting. I'm gonna thank our cameraman Louie, and hopefully we got the sound system corrected. At this time, we're gonna go into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, or compensation of a public employee. There will be no further business at the conclusion of our executive session. Can I have a motion to go into executive session, please?
So moved.
Thank you. In a second.
I'll second.
Forrest, thank you.
Mr. Hope?
Yes.
Mr. Havens,
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter,
Yes.
Mayor Schweller.
Yes. And thank you for attending tonight's meeting, and again, we'll go into executive session. No further business will be transacted afterwards. Thank you for coming.